There's a quiet moment most people recognize but rarely examine closely. The moment you tap your card or click confirm payment for something small, something that feels almost invisible in the larger picture of your finances. A coffee, a subscription, a quick delivery fee. And in that moment, nothing feels consequential. Nothing signals that anything meaningful has changed. Yet over time, those nearly invisible decisions begin to accumulate in ways that are far from harmless. The core idea is not that small expenses are inherently bad, but that they operate beneath the threshold of emotional resistance, which makes them uniquely powerful. Because unlike large purchases that trigger caution and deliberation, small expenses bypass scrutiny and repeat frequently. And it is this repetition combined with invisibility that turns them into a structural force shaping your financial trajectory rather than isolated, harmless events. Psychologically, the human brain is not designed to intuitively grasp accumulation over long periods, especially when changes are gradual and distributed. And so a daily expense of a few dollars does not register as a monthly or yearly burden. It registers as a momentary convenience or reward. And because the brain discounts future consequences in favor of present comfort, it continuously approves these micro-decisions without updating the larger financial narrative, creating a disconnect between intention and outcome. When you translate this into numbers, the pattern becomes clearer and less forgiving, because a daily expense of even $5 scales into $150 a month, and further into $1,800 a year. And when extended across a decade, that becomes $18,000, but even this figure understates the true cost, because it ignores the opportunity cost of what that money could have become if it had been invested or saved. If you consider a modest annual return, the same stream of small expenses, when redirected, does not merely accumulate, it compounds, meaning that each dollar begins to generate additional dollars over time. And this introduces a second layer of growth that most people never see when they are spending, because spending is linear and immediate, while investing is exponential and delayed. And the human mind tends to undervalue exponential processes because they do not feel significant in the early stages. As this dynamic continues, the effect is not just numerical but systemic, because your financial structure begins to adapt to these patterns. Fixed expenses grow, discretionary spending becomes normalized, and the margin between income and savings narrows, reducing your flexibility and resilience. And over time, this erosion limits your ability to take advantage of opportunities, whether that means investing, changing careers, or absorbing unexpected costs, effectively constraining your financial freedom not through a single decision, but through thousands of small, unexamined ones. At a broader level, this is why two individuals with similar incomes can end up in dramatically different financial positions, because the difference is not always in the size of their earnings, but in the structure of their daily decisions and the accumulation of those decisions over time. And once these patterns are established, they tend to reinforce themselves, as higher spending reduces savings, lower savings reduce investment growth, and reduced growth increases dependence on continued income, creating a cycle that is difficult to break without deliberate intervention. The shift, then, is not about eliminating every small pleasure or adopting an extreme form of restriction, but about recognizing that small expenses are not isolated events. They are recurring variables in a long-term equation, and once you begin to see them that way, the question changes from, "Can I afford this right now?" to "What is the long-term cost of repeating this decision?" which introduces awareness into a space that is typically automatic. Over time, this awareness leads to a subtle but important identity shift, where you no longer see yourself as someone reacting to expenses as they arise, but as someone actively shaping a financial system, where each small decision is aligned with a larger direction. And this does not require perfection or constant vigilance, only a consistent recognition that the smallest actions, when repeated, are rarely small in their consequences. And in that recognition, there is a quiet form of control, not driven by restriction but by clarity, where financial freedom is no longer something distant or abstract, but something gradually constructed, one decision at a time, often in moments that once felt too small to matter.